Prayers. I will invite the Deputy Leader of the Opposition to grace us with prayers.
Morning, members. Let us pray. Almighty God, from whom all wisdom and power are derived, we beseech thee so to direct and prosper the deliberations of the Legislative Assembly now assembled, that all things may be ordered upon the best and surest foundations for the glory of thy name and for the safety, honor, and welfare of the people of these islands. Bless our Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth II, Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Charles, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Give grace to all who exercise authority in our Commonwealth, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us. Especially we pray for the Governor of our islands, the Premier, the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, the Leader of the Opposition, Ministers of the Cabinet, ex officio members, members of the Legislative Assembly, the Chief Justice, and members of the Judiciary, that we may be enabled faithfully to perform the responsible duties of our high office. All this we ask for thy great name's sake. Let us say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace, now and always. Amen.
Please be seated. Proceedings are resumed.
Administration of oaths or affirmations.
None.
Reading by the Honourable Speaker of messages and announcements.
None.
Presentation of petitions.
None.
Presentation of papers and of reports. Financial Reporting Authority Annual Report for the 12-month period, 1st of January to 31st of December 2019, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Attorney General.
Honourable Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and good morning. Madam Speaker, I beg the leave of this House to lay on the table the Financial Reporting Authority Annual Report for the 12-month period, 1st January to 31st December 2019.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Attorney General wish to speak there too?
Madam Speaker, briefly, with your leave, just to highlight a couple of things about the report itself. Madam Speaker, as an administrative financial intelligence unit, the FRA is responsible for receiving, requesting, analyzing, and disseminating financial information disclosures concerning proceeds of criminal conduct or suspected proceeds of criminal conduct. Domestically, Madam Speaker, the investigation of financial crime and associated offences falls under the ambit of the local law enforcement agencies. The FRA, Madam Speaker, received 1,138 suspicious activity reports during the reporting period, which is an increase of 22% compared with 935 in calendar year 2018. SARS, Madam Speaker, were received from 262 different reporting entities, not including the 45 overseas FIUs that voluntarily disclose information to or requested information from the FRA. Sources of SARS, Madam Speaker. Banks continue to be the largest source of SARS, 301 cases, or 26%, followed by money services business. Those are like the remittance services. 202 cases, Madam Speaker, or 18%. FIUs, 106 cases, or 9%. Mutual fund administrators, 83 cases, or 7%. Company managers and our corporate service providers, 78 cases, Madam Speaker, are 7%. Trust companies, Madam Speaker, 78 cases are 7%. And insurance businesses, 75 cases are 7%. Reason for suspicion. Madam Speaker, the 5 most common reasons for filing SARS were: 1, suspicious activity, 476 cases or 42%. 2, fraud, 232 cases or 20%. 3, corruption, 89 cases or 8%. 4, money laundering, 88 cases or 8%. And 5, regulatory matters, Madam Speaker, 66 cases or 6%. Madam Speaker, during the reporting period, the FRA performed the initial analysis of 515 SARs. It also issued 141 directives pursuant to Section 4.2c of the Proceeds of Crime Law to amplify or clarify information received. The FRA also made 46 requests, Madam Speaker, for information to overseas FIUs to either further its analysis or assist local law enforcement agencies with investigations. The FRA, Madam Speaker, closed 333 SARs during the reporting period, resulting in 156 disclosures to local law enforcement agencies or competent authorities, and 119 disclosures to overseas financial intelligence units. Feedback from the Financial Crime Investigation Unit of the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service revealed that several disclosures made by the FRA have initiated a number of new investigations or assisted ongoing investigations, Madam Speaker. There were significant changes to the staffing complement during the reporting period. Between January and July 2019, the acting administrative manager, a financial analyst, and the senior financial analyst all resigned. Between September and November 2019, the FRA hired a senior financial analyst, 3 financial analysts, and a temporary administrative manager. A permanent administrative manager was hired in January 2020. And the FRA currently has ongoing recruitment exercises for a senior financial analyst and 2 financial analysts. Madam Speaker, FRA staff spent significant time during the reporting period meeting obligations regarding the jurisdiction's 4th round mutual evaluation by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, or the CFATF for short. The key activities, Madam Speaker, included preparing and implementing an action plan to address the relevant recommended actions stated in the mutual evaluation report. They also, Madam Speaker, spent time attending monthly committee and working group meetings, preparing monthly update reports, providing statistics and participating in various risk assessment working groups, and preparing the first follow-up report that was tabled at a CFATF plenary in November 2019. The FRA, Madam Speaker, remains committed to the ongoing activities concerning the mutual evaluation process. Madam Speaker, during the reporting period, significant progress was made in evaluating 1, software solutions to facilitate the electronic submission and storage of SARs, secure electronic communication with reporting entities, and the provision of analytical tools to improve the research and analysis performed by staff. And also, Madam Speaker, 2, identifying the hardware required to run the software solutions. Madam Speaker, in accordance with the procurement law and regulations, a public request for proposal, RFP, was published on the 4th of December 2019 for software solutions, with a submission deadline of the 31st of December 2019. The required hardware, Madam Speaker, was ordered in December 2019. The installation of the software solutions commenced in July 2020, and it is anticipated, Madam Speaker, that the system will go live by the 31st of August 2020. Madam Speaker, the majority of the work undertaken by the sanctions coordinator during the reporting period was to address recommended actions in the mutual evaluation report that were directly related to targeted financial sanctions for terrorist financing and proliferation financing, including, Madam Speaker, implementing an automated mechanism to ensure the more timely communication of terrorist financing sanctions, building on the existing industry guidance for TFS, and improving awareness of TFS obligations. And of course, Madam Speaker, improving the coordinating and cooperation among domestic agencies regarding proliferation financing. Madam Speaker, 72 financial sanctions notices were circulated by the FRA and published on its website. Madam Speaker, I'd like to commend Director Robert Berry and his staff at the FRA, Madam Speaker, for their continuing hard work and professionalism in continuing the fight against the scourge of money laundering and related offenses. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I commend the report to honorable members and the wider public.
Cayman Islands Expungement Board 2018 Annual Report, Criminal Record. Cayman Islands Expungement Board 2019 Annual Report, Criminal Record, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Deputy Governor.
Honourable Deputy Governor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual reports for the Expungement Board for the 2018 and 2019 calendar years.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Deputy Governor wish to speak there too?
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you. Madam Speaker, by way of introduction, I shall first provide some background information and a brief explanation of the components of the 2018 and 2019 annual reports for the Expungement Board, and then speak to some summary highlights from these reports. Background information. Madam Speaker, the Criminal Record Spent Convictions Law 2018 revision repealed and replaced the Rehabilitation of Offenders Law 1998 revision and established the Expungement Board for the purposes of expunging criminal records. Madam Speaker, it should be noted that the primary object of the Criminal Record Spent Conviction Law is to implement a scheme to limit the effects of a person's conviction for a range of offenses if the person, having served their sentence, subsequently completes a period of crime-free behavior. Madam Speaker, the law provides that on completion of that period, the conviction shall be regarded as spent. And subject to some exceptions, a person is eligible to apply for the expungement of that criminal record. By law, applicants are limited to 2 expungements. Section 5.1 and Section 6.1 of the law establishes an expungement board with authority to approve, disapprove, or revoke expungements. Madam Speaker, by law, criminal records for certain convictions and offenses can never be expunged, including, for example, treason, murder, and child pornography. Schedule 2 and Section 12 of the law provides the full list of offenses and convictions for which criminal records cannot be expunged. Madam Speaker, where the criminal record of a person has been expunged, the law establishes that the person will be treated for all purposes in law as a person who has not committed the offense, been charged with the offense, been prosecuted for the offense, been convicted of the offense, and been sentenced for the offense. Madam Speaker, in Schedule 4, the law specifies certain professions and offices of employment where persons must disclose expunged criminal records. Madam Speaker, Section 44 of the Criminal Record Spent Convictions Law 2018 revision states that the board shall submit to the governor a report for that year containing the number of applications for expungement of criminal records made in respect of the offenses referred to in Schedule 2 of the law, the number of expungement of criminal records that the board approved or disapproved, categorized by the offense to which they relate, and, if applicable, the district of residence of the applicant and other information required by the governor. Some key components of the annual report to the Expungement Board. Madam Speaker, in fulfillment of these requirements, the two annual reports just tabled contain information regarding the number of applications for expungement of criminal records received and disposed of by the Expungement Board in 2018 and 2019 under the said law. The annual report for the Expungement Board consists of the following sections: a chairman's report, table of expungement statistics for the period, a discussion of the statistics, and some background information about the board and its members. Summary highlights. Madam Speaker, I will now share some summary highlights from the annual reports of the Expungement Board. Madam Speaker, since the first year of operation of the board in 2018, both the number of applications submitted and the number of applications approved by the Expungement Board have increased significantly. Madam Speaker, the Expungement Board annual report for 2018 indicates that 6 applications were submitted to the board. Of these applications, 1 application was deemed eligible and approved by the board. In contrast, Madam Speaker, the annual report for 2019 indicates that 52 applications were submitted to the board. Of these applications, 29 were deemed eligible and approved by the board. Madam Speaker, for both 2018 and 2019, the annual reports indicate that the most common reason for applications not being approved was that applicants had not completed the required crime-free period established in the Criminal Records Spent Convictions Law. Since this means that such applications have not met the requirements set out in the law to be considered, they would have been deemed ineligible by the board. Conclusions. Madam Speaker, I believe that the chairman of the Expungement Board, Ms. Marlene Brandt, summarizes well the importance of the work of the Expungement Board when she writes in her chairman's report for the 2019 annual report the following words: "Today, it is quite common for employers to carry out background checks before hiring a good applicant. This inevitably reveals the applicant's record of conviction, which may be to the applicant's detriment. When criminal records act as a barrier to employment, education, and more, it serves to entrench inequities in our society. While expungement does not address all the challenges faced after conviction, it begins the process of restoration for mistakes of the past. This is an immense benefit which cannot be quantified." Madam Chair, the members of the Expungement Board are volunteers appointed by the governor. In addition to Ms. Brandt, the membership of the Expungement Board include the following members of our community: Mr. Hugh Lockwood, Mrs. Kaling Wright, and Pastor Allison Ebanks. Madam Speaker, my office provides secretarial support to the board, and a member of my team serves as secretary to the board. Madam Speaker, just pause a minute just to say that I think at times we, here in this Parliament, we pass laws and we wonder whether these laws are actually having an effect on our people. Madam Speaker, allow me just a minute to share with you one story of an applicant who applied to my office for an expungement. We had a young Caymanian who had been out of work for some time, applied for a job, and he got it. His employer called him in and said, "Your job requires training, and I would like to send you overseas to training. And you've been booked to leave on Tuesday of the following week." However, the young Caymanian runs down to the police records office. He needs to get his waiver. He then notices, and he forgets that he's actually had a conviction, a minor conviction, but a conviction which would have prevented us from issuing him a visa waiver. So what does he do? He has a job, he has training, the flight leaves on Tuesday. This is now Thursday. He's told about the criminal record spent convictions law. He contacts my office. We advise him what he needs to get done. He submits an application. Madam Speaker, Ms. Jordana McLaughlin, the Secretary of the Board, fine young Caymanian civil servant, works some magic, sends the application around by round robin to the board members. He met the criteria, and Madam Speaker, he was able to catch his flight. That young man is now able to be a productive member of our community because of a law that we all passed here. That is something that I think we can be proud of, and I think we have seen that the procedures that we have put in place, the board that we have put in place, and the staff who is working with the board is actually doing the job of what we intended for this to happen. So I'm very pleased, Madam Speaker, I could share with you a number of stories like that where we've been able to make people's lives better through expunging their records. I'm very proud to say that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to express my appreciation for the small number of volunteers who make up the board. They're providing a very important service to our community. 30 expungements means that 30 of our citizens now have an opportunity for a fresh start in life after remaining crime-free for the periods required by the law. Madam Speaker, I thank you. Madam Speaker, before I do that, I just want to say a quick thank you to the board chair, Ms. Marilyn Brandt, and all of the members of my office, the secretariats, who have been doing a really great job. Ms. Jody Whitaker, who is the manager in my office, Ms. Mary Rodriguez, the chief advisor, who has been working very closely with the board, and like I said, Ms. Jordana McLaughlin, who is the secretary to the board and administrative officer, and doing a very good job. Thank you.
The 18th report of the Commission for Standards in Public Life, 1st of August 2019 to the 31st of January 2020, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Deputy Governor.
Honourable Deputy Governor.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the 18th report of the Commission for Standards in Public Life, which covers the period 1st of August 2019 to the 31st of January 2020, in line with its constitutional mandate found in Section 117(9)(g) of the Cayman Islands Constitution Order.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Deputy Governor wish to speak thereto?
Yes, Madam Speaker, just briefly. Madam Speaker, a brief overview of the 18th report of the Commission for Standards in Public Life. Madam Speaker, the Commission for Standards in Public Life continues to operate under the leadership of Ms. Rose Whitaker-Miles, who's been doing a really great job. And during the reporting period, she serves alongside members Ms. Sheena Hislop and Ms. Aisuta Say, both excellent members of the Commission. This report covers the progress made and the key issues arising from the work completed by the Commission during the second half of their 4th year in office. During the reporting period, the members tabled the Commission's 17th report, which is now available on the Commission's website, discussed preliminary arrangements for handing over of the existing registers from the Clerk of the LA, who serves as the Registrar under the Registrar of Interest Law, reviewed the collated responses received from the Attorney General following discussion with His Excellency the Governor regarding the drafting of the necessary regulations to accompany the Standards in Public Life legislation, met with the Director of Central Procurement Office to explore ways in which the Commission and the Central Procurement Office could interact in order to meet the Commission's mandate set out in Section 117(g) of the Constitution, i.e. to review and establish procedures for awarding public contracts. They also met with members of the Public Procurement Committee, given the Commission's constitutional remit as it relates to procurement, thereby creating a potential overlap of some responsibilities between the two bodies. Continue to follow up with the Cabinet Secretary on the status of the Ministerial Code of Conduct and continue to draft conference report for the 5th Annual Commonwealth Caribbean Association of Integrated Commissions and Anti-Corruption Bodies Conference. Over the next reporting period, the Commission intends to continue to liaise with the Office of the Governor and Office of the Premier on the commencement of the SPL legislation and regulations. And, Madam Speaker, we will note that that has already been overtaken as that law is now in effect. The Commission will also actively work on the necessary preparation work to ensure the submissions of declarations under this SPL for the first time will be seamless. And I think we're all getting our submissions ready our declarations ready to be sent into the Commission. In addition, the Commission will also develop instructions for the completion and submission of declarations of interest, formulate a communication strategy, which will include the issue of guidance notes and the like to ensure the relevant individuals are aware of and adhere to the standards in public life law by disclosing any conflicts of interest or perceived conflicts of interest. Liaise with the registrar of the Register of Interest for the handing over of all records required under Section 36(2) of the SPL law. Issue correspondence to the Honorable Premier to request sight of the Ministerial Code of Conduct, finalizing the conference report, and continue to participate in any educational or public relation opportunities, as well as local and regional cooperation efforts where possible. I encourage members of the House and the public to familiarize themselves with the contents of the report, which is available online at standardsinpubliclifecommission.ky. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Sister Island Affordable Housing Development Corporation Annual Report for the year ending 31st of December 2019, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Deputy Premier.
Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the Sister Islands Affordable Housing Development Corporation Annual Report for the year ended 31st December 2019.
So ordered. Does the Honorable Deputy Premier wish to speak thereto?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, just quickly, on page 3 of the report, the Auditor General's report, I would just like to read one paragraph. In my opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the corporation as of the 31st December 2019 and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year ended 31st December 2019 in accordance with international public sector accounting standards, an unqualified report. And to thank the board and the staff for the hard work and good work that they've done. Thank you.
Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport, Cayman Islands Government, Annual Report for the year ending 31st of December 2019, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Deputy Premier.
Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism, Transport, Cayman Islands Government Annual Report for the year ended 31st December 2019.
So ordered. Does the Honorable Deputy Premier wish to speak thereto?
Again, just briefly, Madam Speaker, on page 3 again, the Auditor General's report says, in my opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the ministry as at 31st December 2019 and its financial performance and cash flows for the year ended 31st December 2019 in accordance with international public sector accounting standards. Again, an unqualified report. I take the opportunity to thank the Chief Officer and all the members of my ministry and thank them for all their hard and good work.
Ombudsman Cayman Islands Annual Report 2019, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Financial Services and Home Affairs.
Honourable Minister of Financial Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay this annual report 2019 of the Office of the Ombudsman on the table of this Honourable House on behalf of the Oversight Committee.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Minister of Financial Services wish to speak thereto?
No, Madam Speaker, just to invite members to read the report at their leisure.
Report of the Standing Business Committee, 5th meeting of the 2019-2020 session of the Legislative Assembly. Report of the Standing Business Committee, 6th meeting of the 2019-2020 session of the Legislative Assembly, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Premier.
Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the report of the Standing Business Committee of the Legislative Assembly of the Cayman Islands for the 5th meeting of the 2019-2020 session. And with your permission, I also wish to lay on the table of this Honourable House the report of the Standing Business Committee for the 6th meeting of the 2019-2020 session.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Premier wish to speak thereto?
No. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions to Honourable Ministers and members of the Cabinet?
None.
Statements by
Madam
the Honourable...
Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I know we had a brief conversation about this offline, but there are questions that have been submitted, and I just wondered when we would get to them, because I'm concerned that we may not have all ministers with us for the remainder of the week after today, and I haven't seen any questions on the order paper. It was agreed in Business Committee that we would put them down as they came in, so I'm not sure where we are with questions.
Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition, we only have answers to 3 of the questions, and tomorrow being Private Members' Day, we will address those tomorrow. Member for Georgetown Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise because I'm hoping that we're not just going to ignore the question by the Leader of the Deputy Opposition, because we continuously want to skip steps in this Honourable House. Those questions is an avenue for us in the members in the opposition to get answers on behalf of the people. Now, 2 days, we were debating a very sensitive topic. We allowed it. Today shouldn't be that controversial. We'll take the vote, but there should have been enough time for those questions to be on the order paper. Now, there has to be some rationale so the good people of this country understands how we do things by way of our standing orders. Now, who made the decision not to put the answers on the order paper? I don't know, but there are people in our gallery, and I don't want them to think that that's how things are done here in our Parliament. There needs to be a reason why the answers are not there.
Member for Georgetown Central. We've received 3 questions, and they will be on the order paper tomorrow for private members' day.
Madam Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you. Just for the sake of procedural clarity, we have one bill, we have the wind-up of this bill, and depend on whichever way it goes, this bill will be concluded today. Because the government says they only have one committee stage amendment, a report and a 3rd reading. And so we got supplementary thereafter, the supplementary bill, which is Finance Committee. If we resolve today at the conclusion of this domestic partnership bill to go into Finance Committee, the House usually resolves to go into Finance Committee, and the House will resume upon the completion of Finance Committee. Now, I suspect with the bundle of trees that I have here on Finance Committee, that we are going to be in there for quite some time. So I don't understand how we're going to come back here tomorrow. Unless we come back to the House and then resolve to go in Finance Committee after we finish the business of the House. But then that's private members' motions, and we have all these private members' motions. So Finance Committee, as according to the minister, he wanted Finance Committee, he was calling Finance Committee tomorrow. I don't know how we're going to do that. We need to find out how we're going to proceed, really.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, I will liaise with Madam Clerk, and we will determine what is on the order paper for tomorrow. Madam Clerk, can we continue, please? Business on the order paper.
Sorry? Statements by honourable ministers and members of the Cabinet.
I have given leave to the Honourable Minister of Commerce to make a statement.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to make a statement as to the circumstances surrounding the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure, CPI, request for...
Please, members, just refrain from your conduct and act with respect accordingly.
Request for reallocation of funds from within the 2018 budget as set out under Section 11.5 of the Public Management Finance and Finance Law 2018 revision. Madam Speaker, first, the supplementary expenditures being requested for expenditures related to the Department of Vehicle and Driver's License, DVDL, due to the significant increase in vehicle registration licensing prior to the introduction of the electronic vehicle registration, EVR. DVDL recorded about 250 transactions per day. However, this has now almost tripled. Madam Speaker, now that we have begun the replating campaign, the expense would have caused the ministry, and more specifically, DVDL, to exceed its allocated expenditure. Furthermore, other additional equipment and human resources were also required to assist with the greater demand to deliver a more customer-focused experience. Madam Speaker, the anticipated cost of around CI 400,000 was identified for the ministry's 2018 budget allocation, and pursuant to Section 11.5 Public Management and Finance Law, the transfer of CI 400,000 was actioned from appropriation PAH 22, Implementation of E-Government Program, to PAH 16, Licensing of Drivers and Vehicles. Madam Speaker, secondly, the Public Works Department, PWD, has conveyed to the ministry that the PAH 10 account, Management of Government Properties, appropriation on the recruitment, maintenance, and allocation, has been reduced over the years due to budget constraints, and as a result, PWD have had to scale back on routine maintenance of Crown properties in order to operate within the approved allocation. Ministry reviewed their recurrent budget and was able to identify that the projected overspend in the PAH 10 allocation was circa CI 300,000. Therefore, Madam Speaker, a reallocation of funds was requested to transfer within the 2018 budget, CI 300,000 from appropriation PAH 22, Implementation of E-Government Program, to PWD PAH 10, Management of Government Properties. Madam Speaker, lastly, the ministry's CPI transferred from within the 2018 budget, CI 2.5 million from appropriation EA 148, Major Road Upgrades, to the Ministry of ESAL with responsibility for lands, EA 4, Road Compensation. Madam Speaker, Ministry was also planning the extension of the Godfrey Nixon Road running west to North Church Street. This project was to be funded from the Ministry's EA 148 Major Roads Upgrades account. This project had an earlier projected start date. However, given that the process involved was more onerous than originally envisaged, the finalization of the corridor took longer than anticipated to plan. Once the requisite boundary plan is gazetted, this brings into effect an immediate legal obligation to pay compensation. This liability needs to be properly addressed and funds ring-fenced to cover the compensation liabilities. Ministry of ESAL are responsible for these liabilities, and to ensure that sufficient monies are available in the short and medium term, Ministry CPI agreed to transfer some capital monies. These monies can be accrued and utilized in future years since the legal commitment occurred in 2018. This approach was discussed and agreed with the Accountant General, Ministry of Finance Administration, and it would be noted that the amount transferred does not cover all the gazetted corridor. These funds, 2.5 million, will act as a buffer to allow the process to commence. Further funding can be accommodated in the coming years as anticipated and/or needed. Madam Speaker, the aforementioned exceptional circumstance transactions, which were approved by Cabinet for the Ministry of CPI during 2018 financial period, did not cause any non-compliance with the principles of responsible financial management. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the House for their continued support, and thank you, Madam Speaker.
Personal explanations.
None.
Sorry, Madam Speaker,
Sorry,
I have a
are you
second
finished?
one. My apologies. Madam Speaker, I wish to make a statement as to the circumstances surrounding the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure CPI request for reallocation of funds from within the 2019 budget as set out under Section 11.5 of the Public Management and Finance Law 2018 revision. Madam Speaker, the supplementary expenditure is being requested for expenditures related to the National Community Enhancement NICE project, which has operated for a number of years now. The government decided to run the program twice per year, which was estimated to cost $845,000 annually, and funded an allocation in the 2019 budget for this expenditure. However, Ministry exhausted approximately CI $520,000 of the allocated funds during the summer program as a result of an increased number of applicants for the winter program to 670 persons. It was estimated that we would need an additional CI $250,000. Madam Speaker, it was forecasted that Facilities Management Department would overspend their budget by approximately CI $250,000, attributed to unforeseen operational costs such as extraordinary janitorial services. The Department of Vehicle and Equipment Services, DVES, Madam Speaker, also overspent their budget by approximately $200,000 due to unforeseen operational costs such as maintenance and repairs to heavy equipment vehicles, thereby increasing the appropriation. Procurement and maintenance of government fleet by CI $200,000. However, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure, CPI, reviewed the budget and was able to identify from the underspent of CI $700,000 in the appropriation of PAH 18 Technology Support Services, which covered the Facilities Management, Department of Vehicle and Equipment Services, and the NICE program overspent. Madam Speaker, Ministry allocations EI 71, Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure appropriation was increased by CI $80,000 from EI 51 transferred from the Ministry of Health, Environment, Culture and Housing, Ministry of Capital Funding, appropriation EI 53 from the Ministry of Health, Environment, Culture and Housing was decreased in the amount of CI $80,000 to facilitate the purchase of equipment for the Public Works Department's PWD, Recreation, Parks and Cemeteries section, RPCS. Madam Speaker, the aforementioned exceptional circumstance transactions, which were approved by the Cabinet for the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure, CPI, during 2019 financial period, did not cause any non-compliance with the principles of responsible financial management. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the House for their continued support.
Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wonder if I might be permitted under Standing Order 32 to ask a few short questions.
In accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 32, I will allow short questions and call on the member who has risen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, last meeting, there was some discussion here in relation to another question that I had submitted on MRCU and the dikes and Newlands. And I had, after we determined that the dikes were not functional, I had made a request that some of the initial clearing work and cleanup around those dikes would be, if it would be, the minister would consider including that in an upcoming NICE program. I'm wondering if he could give us any update on whether or not he's considered that further.
Honourable Minister of Commerce.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Thank the member for the question. We can certainly consider that, but I can provide the details later. But I know that there's also some correspondence at the moment between NRA and MRCU on addressing some of those dikes.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wonder if the member can tell us, in his statement, he says that the Facilities Management Department has overspent on their extraordinary in operational costs such as extraordinary janitorial services. Are these on fixed contracts, or we have increased the amount of facilities that government now has responsibility to clear and clean from a janitorial perspective.
Honourable Minister of Commerce.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From my memory, we do have time to time additional works that have to be done in other government buildings that fall under facilities management. And then we also have unexpected works such as floor cleaning or polishing or carpet cleaning where we have incidents of spills or damage.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, is the minister telling this House that tiles cleaning is not budgeted for on a periodic basis? Say once every 2 years or something of that nature, or I appreciate spills on the floor cannot be anticipated during budget time, but it can't increase the cost that much, or it would mean we're spilling on the floor. You have emergency spills every day, but certainly routine polishing of tiles and carpet cleaning has to be budgeted for on a regular basis when it's and put into the maintenance schedule. Is that not the case?
Honourable Minister of Commerce.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am happy to provide the member with the exact spending of the money if he would like. I just said that I know that we do have time to time extraordinary work that have to be carried out or additional works carried out on some of the buildings that we have responsibility for under facilities management, like civic centers and those sorts. And then I know that there's extraordinary work or additional work that sometimes have to happen in addressing some of the issues within the government administration building. If the member would like, I can get a breakdown of all the works for him. And yes, we do have janitorial contracts, and yes, they do schedule things like tile replacements and floor polishing.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The minister, I appreciate the minister's generosity, but he doesn't have to do that because we're going in Finance Committee on this. And then as long as he prepares himself then, that's fine.
Personal explanations,
None.
obituary and other ceremonial speeches,
None.
raising of matter of privileges,
None.
government business, bills, second reading, continuation of debate, Domestic Partnership Bill 2020.
I will call on the mover of the bill to exercise his right of reply. Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men and women doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to hold their turn long after they are gone, and yet hold on when there is nothing in you except the will that says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can touch you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and all that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Madam Speaker, those words of Rudyard Kipling, penned so very long ago, have been my mantra since I first read them at 14 years. A copy of that poem, If, hangs in my office. I read it very often. Madam Speaker, yesterday and last night, were very, very difficult. I left here entirely disillusioned, disappointed, and fearful. I think I finally lost consciousness about somewhere between 3:30 and 4 o'clock this morning, and my eyes were open at 5:30. But, Madam Speaker, the feeling of despair and disillusionment and disappointment disappeared when I rose this morning. And a feeling of incredible peace has come upon me. The words of my dear departed mother came to me with such force I thought she was standing there. When a man has done his best, even the angels in heaven can't do better. Madam Speaker, my disappointment is not really about the fact that members of my own team have clearly indicated they will vote against a bill which my caucus and my cabinet agreed we should bring and that I should present. I am long enough in the tooth and tough enough, and my skin is thick enough to have faced more than one defeat in my almost 20 years in this House. My worry, my concern, my disappointment is for the people of this country, the reputation of this Parliament, and the interest of these islands going forward. Madam Speaker, I do not for one moment doubt the sincerity and strength of feeling of some members in this House on the position of same-sex relationships. But I also, Madam Speaker, am discerning enough, as I believe is the listening public, to understand the political expediency of others who have swung one side of this issue or the other, wherever they felt the most favorable winds of public opinion were coming from. I say to those, in particular the one who has predicted and proclaimed the demise of all who support this bill and who has been here for 5 minutes. Madam Speaker, people will respect your view and your position. What they will never respect is a man or woman on whom they cannot rely. I'm not going to go down that road, Madam Speaker. That's not where I'm trying to go. And that is all I will say about that. We shall see in due course who's here and who is not next time around. Madam Speaker, I tried really hard to frame this debate in terms that would focus on what the issue is, which would, as far as possible, preclude or certainly not provoke statements, angry statements about the evils of homosexuality and the gay lifestyle. It wasn't entirely successful, but people will have to defend what each of them said. That's not my job. I am not going to persecute anyone for what they've said. But, Madam Speaker, this bill, the Domestic Partnership Bill, came to this House, was brought to this House by me on behalf of the government, not because the government made some policy decision that that was what we felt we should do. It was brought, Madam Speaker, because the Court of Appeal of the Cayman Islands found that this Legislative Assembly, and by extension the Cabinet, are in continuing and long-standing breach of Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which provides for the right to private and family life, and the corresponding section in our own Bill of Rights, which is modeled on the European Convention on Human Rights, Section 9, in particular Section 9.1 of that Constitution. And that being in breach of those rights, of those sections, we are violating and have for years the rights of same-sex persons to a formally recognized framework which extends to them the same basic rights of heterosexual couples. Not marriage, not marriage. Madam Speaker, that is why the bill is here. And notwithstanding that, Madam Speaker, I have heard some speeches which have left the Honorable Attorney General and myself shaking our heads as though, did they not hear a word we said? Madam Speaker, the 27th of May was 7 years since I was first appointed as Premier. I have tried, as has the Honorable Attorney General, over the course of those two administrations, starting some 6 years ago, to seek to persuade the members, the respective members of our team, of my team, the team I lead. Some of the players have changed, some of the players are still here. That although, I shouldn't say although, but although the Bill of Rights, the Cayman Islands Constitution, in the Cayman Islands Constitution, does only elevate marriage or the right to marriage, and does only grant a right to marriage to heterosexual persons of marriageable age as determined by the law. That does not mean that you can simply ignore or trample upon the rights of persons who are not heterosexual to family, to private and family life. And that the courts, not just here, but across the world, have said that gay couples, gay persons are entitled to the basic rights that are accorded to heterosexual married couples with respect to pension, immigration, succession, the right to found a family, etc. This is not some Cayman creation. As I said at the start, our Bill of Rights is modeled on the European Convention on Human Rights. The member from Georgetown Central spoke with derision about my role in the development of that Constitution, and in particular the Bill of Rights. Madam Speaker, I spent the first 9 years of my political career on both sides of this House, battling to get us a new constitution. The United Kingdom said quite properly, quite correctly, we will not grant you a constitution unless you have included in it a Bill of Rights, which accords the generally accepted human rights, protections of the citizen. Madam Speaker, in case anyone thinks that human rights are just some new concept, they came out. This idea that there should be a universal charter on human rights came out of the horrors of the two world wars, particularly the last World War. And it was determined that never again should any state be able to do what was done by Hitler to other human beings. Those atrocities should never occur again. Madam Speaker, we tried. Madam Speaker, when Ms. Chantel Day, who despite what some on the other side may think, is as Caymanian as any of us, and who I believe resides in Georgetown Central. When Ms. Chantel Day and Ms. Vicky Bush, or the council, wrote to us and said, we demand recognition of our right to family life. Of course, they wanted marriage. But they said, if we can't have marriage, let us at least have civil unions. I tried again with the assistance of the Honorable Attorney General to persuade members of my team of the importance of us acting, or there was going to be court proceedings. Madam Speaker, over the course of the last 6+ years, the Honorable Attorney General and I have met with members of the Ministers Association, the Church Ministers Association, many of whom I have on speed dial. Very good friends with many of them, because when you've been around this long, as the older members of this House will know, you attend many funerals, even if you don't go to church otherwise. Know them well, love them all, to a man and woman. We had nothing but absolutely civil and courteous discussions. We tried and we tried and we tried. We could not get support to bring any kind of legal framework legislation. Madam Speaker, politics is the art of the possible. I've always understood that. If I had not understood that, I wouldn't be standing here today. I am not an idealist. I am a pragmatist and a realist. I work hard never to compromise the fundamental principles that underpin who I am. But I understand that politics is also the art of compromise. I do not usually begin battles I feel I cannot win. You lose some even if you think you can win them, but I usually don't begin battles that I feel I cannot win. I wait for a more favorable wind or a better opportunity of the project to succeed. That's how I operate. Anyone who works with me will tell you that. Madam Speaker, the proceedings were begun. We tried again, the Honorable Attorney General and I, to find some means of reaching a compromise, something that our counsel could say to the court on behalf of the government. Madam Speaker, to have pushed that particular envelope at the time would, no doubt in my mind, would have resulted in the government breaking up. Madam Speaker, in the previous administration, I had 2 members, both of whom are still in this House, the members from Savannah and Newlands, walk across the floor because I hadn't even brought a motion. I stood on the floor of this House and said, we have to do something about the situation with Dr. Leonardo Raznovich's immigration status. Because, Madam Speaker, as I said, I'm a realist and a pragmatist. I was elected, as are all of us, to make decisions and judgments on behalf of our people. Otherwise, you could send anybody down here. And Madam Speaker, one of the things I have always understood about leadership is not just about following public opinion. Public opinion is fickle. You're hero today and villain tomorrow. Of course, who doesn't want to have kudos and get kudos? Very few politicians I know don't want to get reelected. Very few. But the day that you start making decisions, the only thing that you think about is whether this can get you reelected, you are, in my view, Madam Speaker, and I say this absolutely advisedly, you are a useless representative. You are simply a mouthpiece. The day that you fail to exercise your own judgment about the rightness, the correctness of a position or not, you are just a mouthpiece. Madam Speaker, there was my good old friend, Roy Borden, if I can find it, what used to be fond of quoting Edmund Burke. Madam Speaker, I can't find where I have the quote, but Edmund Burke put that in language which Mr. Borden repeated over and over in his 16 years in this House, that as a representative, you owe your constituents the benefit of your intellect and judgment, not just a matter of following their opinion. Madam Speaker, the great irony of the speeches, I got some good people around me, Madam Speaker, just to finish that thought, Edmund Burke, the famed British Member of Parliament and statesman, is often cited with regards to matters of Parliament. Often about leadership and truly serving your constituents. He said, your representative owes you not his industry only, but his judgment, and he betrays instead of serving you if he sacrifices it to your opinion. Madam Speaker, to return to my narrative. The great irony of the majority of the speeches that were made in this House in opposition to this bill is that if persons vote as they have indicated and the bill fails, what they consider to be the great disaster that shall attend the Cayman Islands, that would have attended the Cayman Islands if the domestic partnership bill passes, is going to be multiplied tenfold. And I will explain that in but a moment. But Madam Speaker, I want to make one thing clear. This winding up speech of mine is not about trying to persuade one single person in this House on my side or otherwise to vote otherwise than in accordance with their conscience. I want no abstentions. I want every man and woman to do his and her duty and vote their conscience. But I want every man and woman, Madam Speaker, to also realize that while only them will have to live with their conscience, the entire country and every person here will have to live with the consequences of the decision. The decision doesn't affect just you or me. We are deciding on behalf of the people of this country. Remember that. So let your conscience also contemplate the consequences of the decision. Madam Speaker, a number of the members on my side made extremely good contributions. When I say that, the clarity of thought and presentation brought to bear by speeches like that of the Minister for Financial Services, the member from Prospect, and others, ought not to be ignored. And no member in this House can say, having had the messages which I began with, reinforced by the Attorney General and other members from this side, about the consequences of this bill failing, no member in this House will be able to say that they did not understand, at least credibly say so, what the implications of this bill failing are likely to be. Indeed, Madam Speaker, I heard a lot of visionaries on the other side saying what the UK will and will not do, and what they've done and won't do. So, Madam Speaker, I don't claim to be a visionary at all, but I have not spent the last 7 years as Premier in the office of 4 governors now, and I've forgotten how many ministers in the UK, not to understand how that system works, and not to read and not to be able to read what their very careful statements mean. So, Madam Speaker, the irony of which I earlier spoke is that the defeat of this domestic partnership bill will almost as certainly as the sun rises tomorrow result in the imposition on the Cayman Islands of same-sex marriage. Remember, I said so today. And, Madam Speaker, I have already requested the Hansards of whatever member in this House has said. Because, Madam Speaker, I know when it comes, and I promise you, this is not going to be, somebody said 37 years between. This is not even going to be 30 days. Remember that when it occurs because members of this House decided that a domestic partnership arrangement was not satisfactory, was going to be disastrous, was going to undermine marriage in the Cayman Islands. That's why the UK will act. It will not be those on this side who have brought and supported this bill that have caused same-sex marriage to be introduced in Cayman. It will be those who have prevented the government from introducing a parallel arrangement short of marriage, but functionally equivalent thereto. Because I know, Madam Speaker, that when it happens, when the inevitable occurs, there will be screams and shouts, weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth, cursing of the UK, and inevitably an attempt to blame Alden McLaughlin. Madam Speaker, we have said over and over and over again in this House, outside this House, to the ministers of religion, we cannot avoid providing a framework to recognize the rights of gay couples, same-sex couples. We cannot. It is a constitutionally enshrined right. The courts have decided that. It is not a policy decision of the government. And it's the duty of the Legislative Assembly, the government and the Legislative Assembly, to obey a declaration or to recognize a declaration of our Court of Appeal. I'm not even going to rehearse all of the arguments that have been rehearsed over and over again about the importance of the rule of law. We've said them over and over again. But I can tell you, no parliament can long survive in a democracy that does not respect the rule of law. It will lose complete credibility. Not even, as the Honourable Attorney General said yesterday, not even the UK, which is a sovereign parliament, and those who believe that this is a sovereign parliament are about to get a rude awakening. Not even the UK, which is a sovereign parliament, will ignore rulings of its courts because the government, with a small g, government cannot function if the respective arms thereof do not recognize and respect the roles, their respective roles. Madam Speaker, I heard words out there about the government being cowardly. They may not use that word. And I heard the leader of the opposition say, Madam Speaker, that we should have appealed the declaration. The Honourable Attorney General, I think, answered that absolutely clearly. You do not appeal the unappealable. It is pointless. Not only pointless, no one is going to argue it. You're going to get laughed out of court to say, after court after court after court has said that all people, regardless of what their sexual orientation may be, are entitled to private and family life. Madam Speaker, I am going to speak the unspeakable. All of us in here have friends or family who are gay. There, I've said it. Are we going to say that our friend, our son, or daughter, or cousin, or niece, or aunt, or uncle, that they are not entitled to the private and family life because of their sexual orientation? Madam Speaker, I have two sons who, they have taught me so much. They do what was, as a Caribbean male growing up in this place here, I could not do. They have gay friends. They hang out with gay friends. If we tried that in my generation, you would definitely be made gay too, as far as people concerned. Attitudes have changed, and I think that's a good thing, Madam Speaker. Younger people are more tolerant of other people's differences. Sexual orientation is a difference. They are different. I do not ask anyone to agree with someone's lifestyle, but it is their business, not yours. That's how I live my life. Madam Speaker, it is other human beings that we are talking about. other Caymanians, we are saying that they ought not to enjoy the same basic rights that the rest of us who are heterosexual have. The right to enjoyment of family, to have someone to be able to share in the things that you enjoy and participate with in your life. Madam Speaker, homosexuality has been around as long as man has. Madam Speaker, I know the biblical teachings. I promise you, nobody in this house spent more time in Sunday school than me. Not because I wanted to go sometimes, but I had to go because Althea will make sure of that. Madam Speaker, I believe in God. I'm not someone who's in church. Well, I can't say I'm not in church every weekend because I go to many funerals. But I can't say that I go to a whole lot of church services outside the formal ones. But my faith is firm. In God, I believe and trust. I have some ministers of religion who are my rocks. The rocks I lean on, although me being me, probably don't lean as much as I should. But through this COVID crisis, Madam Speaker, I came to one of the lowest points I have ever been in my life. Madam Speaker, I took a decision. I had to take a decision, which I am certain led to the death, the certain death of a man. Because I refused to give the ship permission to come ashore because it was a COVID-19 patient. And that very day, that very morning, our first COVID-19, our only, thank God, COVID-19 patient had died, and we had shut down Health City. I could not expose my people to that. Madam Speaker, I sat by myself and I messaged Reverend Yvette Noble Bloomfield. And she helped me. So, anyone who does not believe that my faith is sure does not know the man. So, everyone is entitled to their own view, freedom of conscience, freedom of expression. But we are not free, Madam Speaker, to trample on other people's rights. That's the whole point of a Bill of Rights. It is set up to ensure that the state does not, by its various mechanisms and agencies, treat one sector of the community different than other sectors, except in very limited and permissible senses, immigration being one, as an example. So, Madam Speaker, I heard a lot of predictions on the other side about how this is going to go. Let me make my prediction. The Domestic Partnership Bill, which we presented to this House, sets up an alternative framework for the recognition of the rights of persons who do not wish to be married if they're heterosexual, and similar rights, right, exactly the same rights for persons in same-sex relationships. What I mean by that is the Domestic Partnership Bill is not limited to same-sex couples, but it's not marriage. But it does confer a full range of rights, because the injunction from the court is that it must be a system which is functionally equivalent to marriage. Madam Speaker, there are carve-outs. We spent a lot of time. I hear there was no consultation. I know nobody on the other side, perhaps except the member from Savannah, has spent more time with the ministers of religion than the AG and I have on these particular issues over many years. We are incredibly sensitive to the religious views. The letter I read from Pastor Torrance Bob indicated that, and said how grateful they were for the consultation opportunities and the regard and respect that we have had for their views. And so we ensured that ministers of religion whose faith does not permit them to sanction same-sex relationships would not have to perform the ceremony, the formal ceremony, to memorialize their relationship. In other words, they would not have to become domestic partnership officers and could remain as marriage officers only using their services for their traditional, conventional marriage. Madam Speaker, if same-sex marriage becomes the reality, I think it will be, all of that will be lost. All marriage will be on the same plane, subject to the same law, subject to the same rules. And so if you're a marriage officer, you will have to marry a same-sex couple if they wish you to. If you don't wish to, you will have to resign as a marriage officer. That is one of the significant differences that the domestic partnership law provided. Madam Speaker, I want to say that, one second, Madam Speaker. I'm hopeless with paper. That's why I prefer not to use it. What have I done with it? Court of Appeal judgment. Here. Yeah, but my copy is marked up. Let me that one. I'll find it. Oh, here we go. Thank you. I don't know what I would do to my deputy premier. Madam Speaker, I apologize for that. Madam Speaker, I want to to explain a bit about how we get to where I think we're going to get. When we were negotiating what became the 2009 Constitution, which started, actually, Madam Speaker, in 2001, the negotiations. It took 8+ years. When we're getting towards the end of that process and the Bill of Rights had started to congeal, there were concerns, always concerns, about preserving marriage as the exclusive domain of heterosexual couples in accordance with the biblical teachings and principles. We believe, Madam Speaker, in this country, those of us who go to church, that marriage is God ordained. And so that's what caused a number of things to happen. What is now Section 14 of the Bill of Rights? It appears in no other constitution that we've been able to find anywhere in the world. This is bespoke Caymanian drafting. Section 14(1). Government shall respect the right of every unmarried man and woman of marriageable age, as determined by law, freely to marry a person of the opposite sex and found a family. What that does is that it categorizes, defines as a human right the right of every unmarried man and woman of marriageable age to marry and found a family. It does not confer that right on same-sex couples. To add the belt and braces that were felt necessary, in 2008, we came to this House with, of course, the full knowledge that we were trying to get this Constitution approved by the UK and then by referendum here, and sought and made an amendment to the marriage law by amending Section 2. So that marriage in the Cayman Islands, and this is still the case, means the union between a man and a woman as husband and wife. Madam Speaker, it is those two sections, one from the Constitution and one from the marriage law, that formed a big part of the constitutional challenge in the Day and Bush against the government, against the Attorney General case. And members of this House, I'm sure, will remember that the Honorable Chief Justice was so outraged at the refusal or failure of the government and this Legislative Assembly to put in place a framework to recognize same-sex relationships, that he determined that by virtue of Section 5 of the Constitution, he was entitled to modify that definition of marriage. And he did so in the following terms. He modified Section 2 of the marriage law to define marriage as being the union between two people as one another's spouses. Marriage means the union between two people as one another's spouses. So he, as Chief Justice, amended the marriage law. He drafted the amendment, and that was the law of this land until the Court of Appeal ruling on the 7th of November 2019. It is that ruling, it is that Court of Appeal, that Chief Justice's judgment that we appealed. And the Court of Appeal said, you are right, government. The Chief Justice does not have the right to amend the marriage law in that way. Your Constitution only guarantees the right of marriage to heterosexual couples, and the European Court on Human Rights has said that same-sex marriage is not a human right. You do, though, however, government, legislative assembly, have to ensure that the rights of persons who are not heterosexual, their right to private and family life, which is also set out in the Constitution, that you put in place a framework to recognize those. It is that we are currently in breach of. The court has said so. So, moving on, Madam Speaker, I think it was the member from Newlands who said, I think it might have been the Leader of Opposition as well, look at this stack of laws that are going to have to be amended in consequence of the passage of the Domestic and Partnership Bill. They're right. Absolutely right. Because we have to find some mechanisms to ensure that those rights which are set out in the Domestic and Partnership Bill are able to be enjoyed. So you've got to find a framework that deals with disputes and ultimately separation, division, pensions, succession, all of those things. All of those things are geared, the legislation is geared to deal with marriage in the conventional sense. So if we are going to import those mechanisms as part of this framework, we're going to have to change those other pieces of legislation. Messy, complicated, difficult. There are some pieces of legislation that we haven't even thought of, I'm sure, because it always happens that way, some obscure piece that you never thought about. From an administrative standpoint, the Chief Justice's approach is genius. It flies completely in the face of the Constitution. But it's genius from an administrative standpoint. Because he changed a mere he changed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words. From marriage means a union between a man and woman as husband and wife, to marriage means a union between two people as one another's spouses. With that simple amendment, all marriage is put on the same plane. And all of the legislation which exists applies with equal force to everyone who is married, whether they are a heterosexual couple or a same-sex couple. The genius is in its simplicity. And I say that to make my prediction. But I think before I make my prediction, I need to deal with a point I think the member from Newlands raised, which I know he's going to law school now, but with the greatest respect, I think he's gotten completely wrong. Madam Speaker, Section 81 of the Constitution gives to the governor the power to enact legislation. It is one of the provisions in the Constitution that still rankle every time I think about it. It irks me, which is why we pushed so hard, and the member from Newlands was there. We pushed so hard to get the UK to agree to remove the power of the governor to legislate for this country. We said if you really feel that you have to do something to ensure that Section 125 of the Constitution, which says there is reserved unto Her Majesty the power to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of the territory, use your order in council to do so. We don't want a governor, albeit on the instruction of the Secretary of State, to continue to be able to make laws for us here. And the UK agreed, at least tentatively. They haven't finally agreed until the Privy Council issues that order. But those around the negotiating table on behalf of the government agreed. And it is still in the current draft. But Madam Speaker, Section 81 is not limited in the sense that the member from Newlands claims. As the Honourable Attorney General has pointed out, the European Convention on Human Rights is brought into this particular dispute. The Court of Appeal have said that where is it? I'm trying to find it now. Yes. In recognition of the long-standing and continuing failure of the Legislative Assembly of the Cayman Islands to comply with its legal obligations under Section 9 of the Bill of Rights, that's ours, and in recognition of the Legislative Assembly's long-standing and continuing violation of Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Those are international obligations to which the United Kingdom is still very much bound, very much within the parameters of Section 55 of the Governor's special responsibilities under the Constitution. What I don't think is fully appreciated by many is that while the constitutionally guaranteed right to marriage is restricted under the Constitution to heterosexual couples, there is nothing in the Constitution or anywhere else that would prevent this House from passing, instead of introducing the Domestic Partnership Bill, we could have introduced a same-sex bill. And it would be for this House, as it is with the Domestic Partnership Bill, to decide whether or not we wanted to pass it. The Constitution does not prevent it or prohibit it. It just does not give it the status of a constitutional right. And in the same way that this House could pass a same-sex bill, the governor can even more easily introduce one. So my prediction is, because of the simplicity, because of the administrative ease And because it will put to bed once and for all the continued pressure from the gay lobby for same-sex legislation. The UK will choose that route. Further, the UK is hugely embarrassed by the fact that the Court of Appeal has called on them, has found it necessary to call on them to act in this matter because of our continuing failure as a legislature to do so. It's been read before, but for completeness, let me read the final paragraphs of the judgment of the Court of Appeal. Madam Speaker, with your permission. We feel driven to make this final observation. This court is an arm of government. Any constitutional settlement requires the executive and the legislature to obey the law and to respect decisions of the court. It would be wholly unacceptable for this declaration to be ignored. Whether or not there is an appeal to the Privy Council in respect of same-sex marriage, there can be no justification for further delay or prevarication. Moreover, in the absence of expeditious action by the Legislative Assembly, we would expect the United Kingdom government to recognize its legal responsibility and take action to bring this unsatisfactory state of affairs to an end. Madam Speaker, as has been alluded to here as well, the decision of the Court of Appeal that same-sex marriage is not a constitutionally guaranteed right under the Cayman Islands Bill of Rights is under appeal to the Privy Council. If the UK acts as I have indicated, the UK no longer has to worry about that appeal to the Privy Council. They would have killed not one, but a couple of birds with one stone. And so, Madam Speaker, that is why I come back to my point that the railings in this House and outside of it against the actions that the government has taken in bringing this domestic partnership bill are likely to result in precisely what those who are against same-sex relationships want less of all: for same-sex marriage to be put on exactly the same terms as heterosexual marriage. The same-sex community will be overjoyed. So, Madam Speaker, when it comes, as I believe inevitably it will, all of us in this House will understand the part that we played in the introduction of same-sex marriage to this community. Some will cheer it, some will say, disaster attends us. But it will be settled once and for all. Madam Speaker, it has been a hard 7 years plus. Yesterday, the hardest of all. I am a man that if you are with me, I will go to my neck in blood for you. I live by some basic principles. Loyalty and trust are principal among them. I will say this: were it not that this country is still in a most precarious and dangerous situation with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic, my speech today would end very, very differently than it will. But I love my country, and I love my people even more than I love my own convenience and personal peace and satisfaction. I have given the best years of my life, most productive years of my life, to public service. I have no regrets in that big decision. I have always sought to do what I have thought is the right interest of my country and my people. I am human. I don't always get it right, but I try very hard to. And the older I get, and the more war weary I get, the better I find my judgment has become about issues and about people. Madam Speaker, that man that sits behind me gets very little kudos, gets very little praise, but at even risking your patience, Madam Speaker, I shall call him by name. Samuel Washington Bulgin, QC, is an exemplary public servant and an exceptional lawyer. In 7 years plus as being legal advisor to the cabinets that I have led, he has never once led us wrong on any issue of consequence. Even when others, including some on the other side of the House, have criticized him and railed against his interpretation. I remember when the Grand Court judgment came down in this matter, the poor Attorney General got it wrong. Madam Speaker, even when the governor felt that we should not appeal that decision, the Attorney General, in his quiet, diplomatic way, says, I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. The case with the referendum law, I heard people on the other side cheering when the government lost that, because I'm hoping they simply did not understand the implications for this House had that judgment stood. The AG says, I think it's wrong. We went to the UK. We sat down around the table in Blackstone Chambers, and certain lawyers there told him we shouldn't pursue it. He said, I disagree with you. I think it's wrong. That's a man, Madam Speaker, as they used to say in those old Western books that I used to read when I was a boy, a man to ride the river with. I thank him. thank his staff. Exceptional, exemplary people who have worked so hard through this COVID-19 pandemic on everything that we needed, from regulations to this issue, on those appeals. I don't want to start calling names, because if I do, I'm going to leave somebody out, and then everybody could be upset because I don't have the list in front of me, because I really didn't plan on doing this now. But when things come to you, you do that. But I'll run the risk anyhow. For those of you that I forget, please forgive me. But I think it's important. Reshma, Celia, Darlene, and Cheryl, and Jose. I hope I haven't left anybody out. They are unsung and unheralded, but this country is blessed to have that quality of legal advice. And it's not just advice, the willingness to go the extra 10 miles to make sure we get it right. I also, Madam Speaker, want to thank my cabinet colleagues for all of the hard work over all of these years and all of the difficult decisions that we make in caucus and in cabinet every week. We don't always agree, but that is why I think the government has been as good as it has been, because I never learn anything from someone who agrees with me, someone who causes me to think about what they've said, and even to argue with them does help. And so, Madam Speaker, this is, for me, a disappointing and unhappy ending of this bill. But as the AG has said to me, the sun will come up tomorrow. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Domestic Partnership Bill 2020 be given a second reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? No.
No. Division, please, Madam Speaker.
Madam Clerk, can you take the division, please?
Honorable Alden McLaughlin.
Aye.
Honorable Moses Kirkconnell.
Aye.
Honorable Juliana O'Connor Connolly.
No.
Honorable Dwayne Seymour.
No.
Honorable Roy McTaggart.
Aye.
Honorable Joseph Hugh.
Aye.
Honorable Tara Rivers.
Aye.
Captain Eugene Ebanks.
No.
Mr. David White.
Aye.
Mr. Austin Harris.
Aye.
Honorable Arden McLean.
No.
Mr. Alba Zaku.
No.
Mr. Kenneth Bryan.
No.
Mr. Anthony Eden.
No.
Mr. Barney Bush.
No.
Mr. Christopher Saunders.
No.
Mr. Ezra Miller.
Aye.
The result of the division is 8 ayes and 9 noes. The Domestic Partnership Bill 2020 has failed. The House will suspend its proceedings for lunch. I ask that all members return to the chamber promptly at 2:30.